Hi everyone. In this lecture, focusing on Northern European painting of the 15th century, I want to focus on the work of Jan van Eyck in particular, and even more in particular in the focusing on the Ghent Altarpiece, a very, very large polyptych completed in 1432 and currently located in the Cathedral of St. Bavo in the city of Ghent. It is worth pointing out that the earlier name of the cathedral, or it really wasn't a cathedral, it was just the parish church of St. John in Ghent, in one of the most wealthy and powerful districts in the city. And that has some bearing on some of the imagery in the text, particularly that relating to St. John. We'll discuss that a little bit more in detail moving forward. So the circumstances of the panel's manufacture, that is all of them. It's a very, very large painting indeed. When it's open, nearly 12 feet tall and 15 feet across. The circumstances of this painting's manufacture are shrouded, I think, in a considerable amount of mystery. One of the more tantalizing bits of information about the panel is that it was created by Hubert van Eyck and Jan van Eyck together. And the problem with this is that we don't really have any solid information on who Hubert van Eyck was, or any other paintings by him, or any clear way of deducing or understanding what Hubert's contribution may have been to this. Of Jan van Eyck's work, we have a fairly good idea. There are a number of extant panel paintings. I think the number is somewhere between 15 or 20, depending on whom you talk to. But with Hubert van Eyck, the record is very, very spotty indeed, which is somewhat surprising given the prominence of Jan van Eyck and the fame that this particular altarpiece enjoyed even in its own time. The subsequent history of the altarpiece is fascinating, with a number of episodes involving theft of various panels. I think it was stolen respectively by Napoleon and Hitler. There are any number of necessary restorations owing to fire, what have you. It's a very complex history, and gives us some indication when we look at something that there's generally a great deal more than meets the eye, literally in terms of the physical state of the painting and what it's gone through to get to where we see it today. So in essence, it's a spectacular painting, in many ways a sort of summation of the achievements in oil painting in the 15th century. To begin with, it's worth pointing out that the painting is composed of multiple panels, and indeed it exists in multiple states. We'll begin by looking at the outward state, the version that we would see on any given day of the week, if it wasn't a particular special one, such as Sunday or Saint's Feast Day or something like this. And so the exterior of it, when it's folded shut, is relatively subdued in terms of color and action and number of figures and so forth. We'll go into more detail as to what's actually happening here, but suffice it to say the sort of normal everyday state of the painting is considerably different from that found in the interior. Once it's fully opened up, we see a really resplendent collection of images, rich hues, lots and lots of figures, and so forth. So that sense of revealing something hidden is very, very strong in the circumstances of the construction of the painting, its arrangement, and so forth. So that's, I think, important to understand, that the painting exists in multiple states and should be handled in that way. So now that we have a little bit of idea of the background of the painting itself, we probably should dig just a little bit deeper into Jan van Eyck's working methods, and just a quick refresher on the role of oil painting in 15th century European art. The most significant contribution, I think, of 15th century art in terms of developing a painting was probably the supreme achievement of Jan van Eyck in really exploiting all the potential of oil painting. To do this, he's working in a variety of different modes, but most typically he would begin with a what's known as a grisaille, G-R-I-S-A-I-L-L-E, a black and white underpainting of one kind or another, in other words, it could have shades of gray, what have you, hence the name grisaille, that would suffice to give a compositional outline and also define the range of light and dark involved in the painting. We can see this in the two fictive statues at the bottom. On the left, John the Baptist right here, and then on the right, John the Evangelist. And then what Jan van Eyck would do typically is go over that grisaille image with various layers of translucent paint in a process called glazing to establish rich, saturated hues, typically red or blue or green, especially in the drapery of the figures, and begin to develop a sense of relief and color really strongly over a series of different layers, and then start adding in highlights and other color as necessary. So the sense of building up a picture, painting from a black and white beginning is very strong in virtually all of Jan van Eyck's work. Throughout, I think, in Northern European painting, the focus is on developing a sense of the sort of tactile, immediate appearance of light hitting surfaces. So there's a very empirically grounded aspect to Northern European art which will emerge in this painting, even though it is depicting places and times that are well beyond that of normal experience for the most part. So that's Jan van Eyck's working method. Again, very painstaking process on a very carefully constructed panel. It's not a improvised or a particularly expressive technique in terms of application of paint. It's also worth pointing out that the actual panel itself would have been very carefully planned, although I don't think we have the contract information for this painting, and art historians would love to have that. Very typically in productions of this kind, there'd be an extensive list of requirements for the artist, right down to the quality of pigments used, date of delivery, use of apprentices, and what have you. That would be certainly helpful in figuring out what Hubert van Eyck, for instance, if he actually participated in this painting, what kind of role he was expected to have. Did Jan van Eyck, for instance, take over after something happened to Hubert? The records, again, don't really show us anything, but it would be wonderful to know. So very carefully constructed, essentially like carpentry, woodworking, the process of manufacture for the panels, the frame, all that kind of thing. The original frames, I think, are for the most part lost on the Ghent Altarpiece. So let's begin thinking about the role of this painting. In essence, it serves to depict in vivid pictorial terms the fundamental principle of Christian thought, and that is the redemption of humanity through the sacrifice of Christ, the sacrifice by God of Christ. And the whole idea of Christian theology, and particularly in the time that we're speaking, but I think it still holds true in the present, is to, in essence, trace a kind of narrative, a timeline almost, from the beginnings of creation, going all the way back to the book of Genesis, through what we might describe as the Hebrew Bible, to the arrival of Christ. And that's where the potential, in a sense, for universal salvation is seen as far as mainstream Christian thought is concerned. And then there's the story of Christ's ministry, his persecution, his execution, his resurrection. And then there's obviously following the sort of organization of the Bible, the Acts of the Apostles in terms of spreading the word of Christ. And the process ultimately culminates, once we're past the four Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles, in the book of Revelations, which is in essence the end of human history, the establishment of Christ's kingdom on earth, and in essence the redemption of all humanity, the immortality, I suppose, of the saved, the condemnation of the damned in the last judgment. So this sense of a narrative trajectory, a narrative flow, is really vitally important in Christian art in general, and certainly in the Ghent Altarpiece.